Since we last spoke, we've had SpaceX xAI have merged. That it all builds into the big xAI X SpaceX Tesla story, of which we have Elon Musk absolutely front and center of that. I've got my own perspectives on it. I can see some opportunities. I've got some concerns about that from being a Tesla stockholder, which I am. I'll talk a little bit about that as well, get your perspective. You were sending me the other day, Georgia Maloney's been out. She's never like a shrinking violet, is she, Georgia? You know what she's thinking. She's come out and said, we're not being dominated by California or Beijing. So you sent me that the other day, Thomas. Get your perspective on that. And then I think we've got a moon base in the offing as well, which you sent me. I haven't seen that. Oh, freaking heck. What are we doing? And Elon had that screeching hard pivot of, we're still going to Mars, but we're going to the moon.
All of a sudden, you said,
that had been done. You didn't want to do that. Who am I to criticize geniuses? But lots going on, Thomas. But look, so let's get into that. But how have you been, mate?
I'm good. I'm at my house in Mexico, trying to get away from US politics and Epstein files for a change. But that's a global phenomenon. Even you guys in the UK.
Wow.
Fully on board now.
Yeah. We're feeling a little bit left out of that. So what we did is we've arrested for the first time a former member of the royal family, but still 8th in line to the throne. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor taken into police custody. So we're
on his birthday.
On his 66th birthday. So we are leading the way. Criticize the Brits all you like in America. We're arresting people. Go do the same thing in the United States of America with these Epstein files. It's obvious who needs to be. It's not even, look at what happened to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor yesterday. He hasn't been charged with anything, but it's like, hey, dude, you're coming in. You're coming for a discussion. So why doesn't America say, hey, you were sending some dodgy emails, my friend. You're FBI, you're coming in for a chat. We're going to take a look at your computer. It's different to charging the person.
Yeah.
Hey, man. Wow.
Hey, we talked about that. There was a time when every time a politician lied, he was shown the door. Those are the good old days. That's not happening anymore. This is still scratching the surface, but I hope every single one will be held accountable, and hopefully there will be justice for the victims one day. Yeah. If that happens during our lifetime, at the moment, I have no idea. But we wanted to talk about, or continue about talking about the data centers in space, because that's a hot topic now. More hot than it was in our last episode, or at the time when you talked to Philip Johnston from StarCloud, because again, we're talking about Elon Musk. We need to start with him because he was teeing it up as to be expected by basically saying, and I quote again, because I don't want to say anything wrong when it comes to Elon Musk, because quoting it accurately is important because it's often wrong. And who knows if this one is right or wrong. But he literally said we are 1,000%, whether he says we, the US, we are 1,000% going to bankrupt in this country. We will fail as a country without AI and robots. Nothing else will solve the national debt, which currently is it 39 trillion already?
Let's call it $40 trillion.
40 trillion. We just need enough time to build the AI and the robots to not go bankrupt before then.
Hey, everybody. Sorry for the interruption, but if you are in a sales role, head on over to bendrakes.com. You will find all of my training content, all really great videos that I've put together for you. There's also a bunch of free stuff. You can get all my free content, all my walks and talks. You'll get so much value from them. Maybe you want to talk about implementing AI in your business. Again, go to bendrakes.com, go to my AI Catalyst page, book a call with me, and let's go through it. I'm giving everybody an introductory discount of a 20% off anything that you want to buy on my platform. Just put in the code SAVE20 at checkout. Now, let's get back to the podcast.
I have to say, in my opinion, a nice tee up, but he partially created that problem. We are in this debt, and if you see what went into these data centers on planet Earth and how that added to the debt, he's certainly part of the problem and partly created that problem. But now he's saying we need to go into space and we need to put all our eggs into one basket, namely doing AI and doing robots, which, if you think back at Bill Clinton's time, who basically eliminated the debt at that time, he used the internet trend, right? That's when the internet came along, and he basically used that, jumped on that bandwagon to eliminate debt. Maybe that was even the last time in the US where we were free of debt using the internet. But AI, so Elon thinks AI helps humans to become multi-planetary species and expand our consciousness. That goes very far. That goes too far for my take. Again, I let the audience interpret what that really means. But you said it already. Moonbase Alpha now is in the spotlight. So far, he said Moon is a distraction. All of a sudden, Moonbase Alpha, a satellite factory on the moon, is the priority of SpaceX. And then, of course, as you mentioned already, this huge merger between SpaceX and xAI, apparently the biggest merger in history, happened in February this year. 1.525 trillion in value, potential IPO of 50 billion. This is a big deal. And Tesla is in that as well, because Tesla invested in xAI. So Tesla is a huge stakeholder in xAI. So all of this comes together. SpaceLink, xAI, SpaceX, Tesla, all of this is now merging together for his dream to build these factories in the orbit.
Yeah, it does. And first of all, space, as you say, is just dominating. You mentioned Philip Johnston, great guy, came on the podcast. I just wanted to share, they did do a press release on February 10th, a tie-up with AWS. Mm-hmm. So 88,000 satellites for AWS outposts. So that is pretty big there from StarCloud.
Ben, it's pretty big, but it's small compared to Elon's FCC filing, which $5 million.
Yeah. So let's go back to Elon. So Elon has, so SpaceX buys xAI for 1.25 trillion ahead of this SpaceX IPO, which I believe the target date for that is this summer. So June, July 2026, we'll have the largest IPO in history with SpaceX, which will then obviously does have xAI in it. So we've got these kind of colliding S-curves, haven't we? And then for us lowly Tesla shareholders, we're all looking at this going, hang on a second. You got Chamath on the All In podcast talking about a reverse merger with Tesla. And it's, hang on a second. I'm not saying I'm against it, but let me just get my head around this, because the problem is, Thomas, what I don't invest in. So so if we wind back, I was looking at where can I invest in AI? And I don't want to invest in a car company. I don't want to invest in a defense company either, or manufacturing or anything like that. I want to invest in AI. And it was clear to me that, do I think cars are all going to be driving themselves around without a driver? You're already seeing that, right? We are now here in London. Yes, I do. Okay, Tesla were making their robo-taxi all AI. Yeah, okay, I can see that. There's 1.2 trillion miles driven in the USA every year and 40,000 road fatalities. That would be a good thing. Happy to invest in that. Do I think humanoid robots are coming at some point and Tesla will have part of that market with their Optimus robot? Yeah, I do. Okay, so I've seen all these like physical real world AI attributes to this company. And then, of course, they've got the power packs, the mega packs for helping solve power and store energy and all this sort of thing. I was like, yeah, okay. Elon as a CEO, if you're invested in his companies, it's going to be like a little bit of a painful journey for you depending on what his last tweet said. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, oh, shit, what the hell are you doing? And getting involved in politics and all of that, it doesn't feel good. But that said, it wasn't a defense company. Now, SpaceX, I regard SpaceX as being a defense contractor for the United States. Those satellites that are being deployed up there, who's the biggest customer of those?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Some people are looking at their telemetry and their supply chains. Other people are pinpointing targets on battlefields or in apartment blocks in different parts of the world that we then a laser guided munition goes into. And so that's the thing that makes me uncomfortable. Is that's what I know. We see this data centers in space, all this sort of thing, but then I'm like, yeah, but this is a defense contractor. But then what do you think is going to happen to the Optimus robots and the humanoid robots? Well, guess what? They're going to be running around replacing the armies of the world, aren't they? The Tesla community seems to be like all in on the concept because they see all of the synergies and the ability to be able to exploit these technologies joined together. And so on so many levels it makes sense. But yeah, on that, I'm not an investor in kind of defense contractors. That's not what I do.
That's a very interesting thought that you expressed, right? If you take it that far, and there are good reasons to take it that far, because we know the next, and many people predict the next war will happen in space. We know that Elon mingled already in the Ukraine-Russian war by downing the Ukraine missiles at one point, shutting off Starlink in time. That's a true story that happened years ago. Yeah, that's a very valid concern. But if we stay with the premise right now that he wants to put data centers in space because we're running out of land, we are running out of energy, we are using too much water for these big, large data centers, a lot of people still question the physics, if this is feasible. On our last episode, you mentioned that's why Starship exists, right? And it's a prerequisite to even bring that payload up in space. But some experts even calculated, even if Starship is up and running, which it is not yet, right? It's not launching. You need thousands of Starship launches to just build one data center. And the reason is because of these huge solar panels that power them, first and foremost, but even bigger, the radiators to dissipate heat. They are football fields large, or maybe even bigger than football fields large radiator panels that they need to dissipate heat from these data centers. And some smart person on LinkedIn basically calculated more than 1,000 Starship flights to put one of these big data centers together up there. And even then, it has the compute power of 3 or 4 racks on Earth. So the physics and the economics are highly questionable. There was once, I was partially involved in that during my time at HPE. There was a Microsoft project called Nautic, where they did the same kind of principle, but underwater. Very successful.
I remember.
So they're building data centers underwater because of the cooling, because of cheap land and all that, and it was successful. But they completely abandoned that then because of scalability and serviceability. Like exchanging a GPU underwater is not as easy as walking through a door in a data center in Illinois and just taking the old GPU out and plugging the new one in. So this is all very questionable. What happens if you need to do a repair in space? What happens if something breaks down? What happens if the latency is too high?
Yeah, and that brings us on to the next linking point here, which is the moon base. Now, the problem we have here, down here on the lovely planet Earth, is we have an atmosphere. And the atmosphere is supremely expensive to send a space rocket through to get things up into orbit and operate in orbit. But here we have a moon base. And I must admit, like, I've always thought, gosh, if we genuinely did, as a human race, go to the moon in the 60s. Why did no one go back and put a base on there? But Thomas, what's your perspective? And then what I would say is, in this image, if you can see the image, if you're watching this rather than listen to the audio version, there's this nice image of a dome with some plants growing in it, some astronauts doing stuff, and of course, it's all powered by. But Thomas, what's your perspective, mate?
So somebody smart saw that picture and posted a comment on LinkedIn, some kind of professor, and said these glass domes do not protect from any kind of radiation. That first and foremost, right? So no plant, no human, no animal will survive in these glass domes because there's no protection from radiation. Then one step further, he keeps saying that within 2 to 3 years, the lowest level for AI compute is in space. And he also says in close to 30 months, that's less than 3 years from now, the cheapest economical place for all AI will be in space. So these are big. We know he made a lot of big predictions that never came true.
Yeah.
This is another one of those. This is why I'm not a Tesla shareholder. But he's throwing this stuff out there on an almost weekly basis. And I'm sure some people believe it. I'm sure he has experts around him as the richest person on earth that know more than we know, but it so blows my mind that it's ongoing. And there are a lot of people who, if you look at the LinkedIn comments on these posts, I'm not a Twitter or X user anymore for obvious reasons, but people don't believe it anymore. That's a fact. And experts put out reasons why it's just unfeasible for many reasons. Why this will fail, because of what we said before: radiation, heat dissipation, serviceability. All this stuff is unresolved. And then even if you put it up and it is up and running, what's the latency?
Yeah, and that's the other piece. As a Tesla shareholder, I can see a roadmap. It's always late. So rather than Elon's making stuff up and it never happens, I would say my experience is it does happen eventually, but it just takes way, way longer. And so look at the robo taxis are rolling around, and I've no doubt that will be a success. There's lots of robo taxi companies out there. The one that provides the cheapest app with the who's scaled will take lion's share, but there's enough to go around, which is what I guess Dara from Uber view. Yeah. They're paying Uber drivers now just to drive around gathering AI data for AI training. That's what Uber are doing.
And by the way, Ben, you had a very good argument in one of the last episodes when we talked about this, why Elon and Tesla will be able to make a robotaxi much, much cheaper than, for example, Waymo.
Yeah, because they actually have a manufacturing capability that Waymo essentially have to buy the car, fit it out, and so already you were just way behind on your cost base is so much higher. But I genuinely believe there'll be lots of different providers and there'll be enough to go around. But my point is, and then look at Optimus. So the Optimus robot, the humanoid robot, looks great in demos. There's lots of Chinese robots, but I don't think the Chinese robots will be working en masse in the USA for the same reasons that we've discussed about sharing competitive technologies and things that can listen and see and and gather information. So I think eventually the Optimus robot will go into Amazon rather, Walmart, UPS, they will end up having lots of humanoid robots. But it takes just a long time because these things are really difficult. And then add into the mix the space data center. And no, we've got to make new technologies. We've got to overcome just huge challenges, just mind-boggling challenges. We've got to invent stuff to do that. Yeah, again, will that happen? I think it will. But when? It's not going to be 30 months, is it? Do you know what I mean?
No,
if I was pre-IPO, I might say that. But it's not going to be 30 months, but I do think it will happen. And I think it will be the only launch platforms is Starship. And Philip said this from StarCloud. There will be the Chinese launch platforms, by which I mean a rocket. There'll be, but those Chinese platforms are not going to take sensitive military hardware up into space, and neither what the Americans aren't going to do that, are they? And neither will the British and all the rest of it. But yeah, so you've got humanoid robots, you've got robo taxi, doable, can see the proof of concepts already happening, really difficult, but doable, can see that happening. The data centers and space thing's just a long lead time on that for me. We may be proved completely wrong.
And if we forget the timelines for a moment, right? Because this is probably all BS and good for the press and maybe good for the stock price. But you're right. Forget the timeline for a moment. Innovation will happen. And remember what he said at the very beginning, right? To tee up that whole thing. Maybe this is the way to avoid that the US goes completely bankrupt.
Good point.
Because manufacturing is not coming back, which was the original intention of the tariffs in the first place, to bring manufacturing back. Now, it hasn't come back in those 1.5 years. Today, the Supreme Court shut down the tariffs. So we don't know where we are, but the US can only survive through innovation. And maybe that's what he's after. And again, maybe he takes the analogy of what Bill Clinton did back in the 90s with the help of the internet innovation. I don't know if that holds water, but I'm just speculating. That might be the thinking behind it, because the national debt is increasing as we speak.
And anyone watching this on YouTube can see that, because I've just shared the US debt clock, usdebtclock.org, and the US national debt, top left-hand corner of this rather busy ticker, is 38 trillion, and you can just see it just zinging up as in front of our eyes. And all the developed nations have their national debt, which they can't afford to pay back, and every 4 years or so they refinance it, just as you might with a mortgage. They just refinance
and our interest rate is higher than our entire military budget at this moment.
Yeah. And if you look at what does the UK spend its tax revenues on, it's first social security and NHS. I think that's number one. I think number two is defence, and then number three is interest payments on our national debt. And so Elon's
at least you're number three here.
At least it's number three. Yeah, so Elon is quite right that, and then his thesis is, well, what we're going to need to do, because it's proven that we can't cut costs without cutting public services and not looking after the people. So what we introduce is Optimus robots that effectively start manufacturing stuff and AI technologies that drive the cost of everything to zero, of producing anything to zero. And then we go into this delightful utopia of, I call it universal basic income, UBI. He calls it universal high income. And I'm like, who's going to...
He's a believer in that. Well, as you mentioned that, he believes in that there will be a universal basic income. You connect the dots quite right on that one.
And there will be, and that's where it has to go to as we go to this automated AI. And just to tie in that other point, Thomas, that you made, really good point about Microsoft saying, what was it, 12 to 18 months?
Yeah.
We've automated the human emulator AI takes over jobs.
And he specifically said white-collar jobs, right? So white-collar job. And I just read the press this morning, and just in the same context, Microsoft today announced they invest $50 billion. They announced it at the AI summit in India, $50 billion into AI to basically make sure that the divide between the first world and the third world is not getting bigger because of AI, because they clearly see that. The divide between where we are and where the rest of the world is getting bigger because of AI. which is not good for the global in general. Microsoft today announced to invest $50 billion, supporting third world countries to get up to speed on AI technologies. Yeah, very interesting topics. And who knows what happens in our lifetime. I don't think things happen in 30 months from now. It's changing quickly.
Yeah, Philip was talking about, when he was talking about data centers in space, and he said, look, we're fixing he said, I can't talk about it, obviously, because this is our secret stuff that we're producing, but don't worry, we've got our proof of concept and around the radiator in space challenge and all the rest of it. And look, we totally, but he was talking about, at least he was talking in like 5 to 10 years. And I think that's much more likely as a time frame, but we'll get there. Interestingly, and we'll come to a close of this episode. Lots of great conversation, but I also saw ChatGPT having a really big push in India. And it just looks like it's now changing. The big players it's almost like Anthropic is just trying to be like, let's bring out better and better models, but at the same price point. And ChatGPT's just, let's try and drive down a price point so we can go in and take the India market, which is 1 billion people, right?
Yeah.
So you're starting to see these different dynamics. And obviously ChatGPT's primary sponsor is Microsoft.
That ends back to Tesla. When you say that Tesla lowered the price on Teslas last year or the last 2 years in order to get every other EV provider out of the market. That's a strategy. And maybe that's the strategy of OpenAI as well, because at one point somebody has to make money. You can't lose 3 billion every quarter, or we talked about it last episode, how much losses OpenAI has, and nobody has figured out how they ever will be profitable and how the investors will ever get their money back. This is still out in the open.
And that was another important thing for me from my investment point of view. I only want to invest in great teams. So I like a founder to be the operator. It's why I like NVIDIA. Jensen is the founder. He had the vision, and today he gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day, 7 days a week, and sits down in front of his email and he runs the company. Great. Elon, love him or hate him, founder, operator. I don't doubt he works all hours and weekends running his companies. I just have no doubt about that. Founder, operator. Then I look at the team and how the business is run. Google, phenomenal operators. You look at the impact of, say, ChatGPT on search and all the rest of it. Google just seems to be able to operationalize things and run a business really well. I'd say the same for Tesla. Just a great. I think Elon. This is the other thing that frustrates me a little bit. Is he gets all the attention because he's like out there just tweeting and all the rest of it. His teams, his actual teams, are brilliant people. Andrej Karpathy, he was Elon's guy that created their first self-driving technologies. Yeah. So you got all these brilliant people who come out, who operate these businesses and really well run, make money. Tesla just produced their first Robo taxi with no steering wheel and no pedals. And so they're confident that, and if they produce one, it means they've set up the entire production line to churn these things out 5 a minute or whatever their gigafactories are able to do. It is phenomenal. Ditto SpaceX. Who else has done that? There's 13,000 satellites whizzing around above us. 9,000 of those are Starlink satellites. Yeah. So it's really weird, isn't it, that when you start looking at these companies, and then I compare that to OpenAI, I'm like, mate, I wouldn't put $1 of my money into OpenAI. It's just like, where's the revenue? I just don't get it.
I guess since we're running out of time, to be continued. But an interesting space, interesting times to be in, an interesting space to watch what will happen next. And there are, again, my viewpoint comes from the Silicon Valley news. It's hard to keep up. It's super hard to just even keep up, let alone being involved in all these different happenings. And we didn't talk about Claude and Anthropic today. We didn't go into detail on what happens on OpenAI internally. You could fill podcasts every day on just the news.
I'm going to do my OpenAI ticker, like the US national debt ticker. Imagine what their ticker looks like. Freaking heck, man. It's like we've got to get some revenue coming in soon from this technology. Hello, brilliant episode as always. Yeah, let's wrap up there, Thomas. Thank you. We didn't, on the list of things we didn't cover was India as well. I was thinking, well, now it's been the big AI conference in India this week, maybe last week as well. Definitely need to go through all of that. What did we learn? What were the announcements made? Alas, we didn't hear from Bill Gates because he had to pull out of his speech, as you reminded
the reasons we mentioned at the very beginning.
Yeah, he's in a bit of a tight spot at the moment, shall we say, and deservedly. So look, let's have a great conversation. Let's wrap up there, and hey, look forward to seeing you on the next one, mate.
Great.
Hey, everybody, if you are in a sales role or sales management role, head on over to bendrakes.com. You will find all of my training content, all really great videos that I've put together for you. There's also a bunch of free stuff. You can get all my free content, all my walks and talks. You'll get so much value from them. Maybe you want to talk about implementing AI in your business. Again, go to bendrakes.com. Go to my AI Catalyst page, book a call with me, and let's go through it. I'm giving everybody an introductory discount of a 20% off anything that you want to buy on my platform. Just put in the code SAVE20 at checkout.